She heard the words as clearly as if they had been whispered into her ear, yet disbelief wrapped around her mind like a cold shroud, making her pulse race with a mix of fear and indignation. That's not possible. Pen's thoughts spiraled back to that fateful week when she had received her promotion and transferred to Cerberus. The memory flooded her mind, vibrant and chaotic. Stepping off the transport, her heart thudded loudly against her ribs as she navigated the unfamiliar halls. There had been excitement mingled with anxiety, the overwhelming prospect of new beginnings battling with the shadows of her past. Reporting to Alvarez for the first time had felt like a test, one she desperately needed to pass. Alvarez had been waiting for her at the docking station, his presence solid and reassuring. But standing beside him was a figure she had come to fear and respect in equal measure, a man whose name had become a specter among the crew. Charybdis. Even the name sent shivers down her spine. Whispers about him floated through the ship, stories thick with intrigue and caution. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was more than just a ghost from the past. He was a reminder of the dangers lurking in the shadows. Her mind painted a picture of Charybdis, tall, broad-shouldered, with an air of authority that seemed to swallow the space around him. He had an uncanny ability to make others feel small. His cold, calculating gaze cut through pretense, and she remembered the way he scrutinized her, as if gauging her worth. That first encounter had been fleeting, just a passing glance in the dimly lit halls of the Osa, but it left an indelible mark on her memory. Now, the challenge coin she held in her palm mocked her, its surface cool and unyielding. It felt like an anchor, a tether to a past she was desperate to escape. This was proof of Charybdis's existence, proof of a connection that had been forced upon her, and proof that her life had taken a turn she never anticipated. "You're holding the truth in your hand, Scylla," echoed Charybdis's voice through the comm link, smooth and assured, as if he held all the cards in this twisted game. Her grip tightened around the coin, the cold metal biting into her skin as if warning her of the danger lurking just beyond the horizon. Alvarez had dubbed her Scylla upon her arrival, a title meant to signify her strength and potential within the ranks of Cerberus. Yet now, it felt like a curse, a brand that tethered her to a dark legacy. "All right," she began, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "What do you want, then? To kill me?" "Quite the opposite," Charybdis replied, his tone unwavering, almost playful. "As I said, those attacks, those blood-soaked actions, were carried out against my orders. You can choose to believe me or not, but that is the truth. What I'm here for is to extend an offer. I've been, let's say, lacking in competent allies. Most of the people I've picked up along the way have proven to be useless. Bullies, really. The kind who can only terrorize unarmed civilians. People like Arthur, bumbling idiot that he was." His words hung in the air, a twisted mockery of camaraderie. Pen felt her gut churn at the thought of being associated with his ilk, with men who preyed on the weak. Charybdis's tone dripped with disdain for the very people he claimed to lead. The pause that followed felt heavy, thick with anticipation and challenge. "There are few who show promise," he continued, his voice laced with a strange magnetism, but no one exceptional. No one like you. I'm offering you a partnership, Scylla. The proposition twisted within her, a dark, alluring thing that threatened to unravel her carefully woven life. Her instincts screamed at her, urging her to reject him, to turn away from this man cloaked in shadows. You expect me to serve under you? Like one of your lackeys? The words tasted bitter in her mouth, but she managed to hold her ground, the fire of defiance flickering in her chest. Under me? Charybdis's voice echoed with amusement, a low, dangerous chuckle. No, you misunderstand. We wouldn't be subordinate. We'd be equals. You wouldn't be my second. We would lead together, side by side, carrying out operations. Two heads of Cerberus. I'm still looking for a third to complete the set, but with just the two of us, we could make a real impact. Her mind raced, torn between the tantalizing promise of power and the gnawing dread in her gut. You mean play pirate until the UEMC catches up with us? She spat, her voice sharp, cutting through the tension. Pirate is a bit reductive, don't you think? Charybdis replied, his tone playful but with an undercurrent of seriousness. The truth is, our operation isn't even fully underway yet, and we're already making waves. As for the UEMC, they aren't going to risk crossing into non-Terran space. They're too politically savvy for that. They'd be walking into a trap. Her heart raced, the weight of his words sinking in. The thrill of adventure danced in her veins, tempting her with promises of a life lived on the edge. But as quickly as it came, the temptation was snuffed out by the harsh reality of his intentions. So you think I'll just sign up? Just like that? Sure, let's be pirates. Her sarcasm dripped from her lips, masking the uncertainty clawing at her insides. Well, here's the pitch. Equal command. We split everything we take. All the spoils are ours to share. And if you've grown attached to that merchant ship you've been traveling with, I'll make sure they're untouchable. Immunity, complete protection for them. But here's the kicker. I know there's someone you want more than that. I can bring him to you. Pine. I could have him on his knees, begging for mercy. The mention of Pine struck her like a physical blow. His name hung in the air like a specter, reminding her of the darkness that had invaded her life. For a fleeting moment, her resolve wavered, and the heat of vengeance pulsed through her veins. The thought of retribution against Pine, a man whose very existence was synonymous with betrayal and loss, made her blood boil. He's rotting in some backwater prison, far from here, she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper, tinged with frustration. Is that justice, Scylla? Charybdis's voice had shifted, the tone growing colder. For killing 5 of the best operators we had? Our closest comrades? Pine sitting there, sipping his bourbon, bragging about his victory. Corman City. Do you think that's punishment enough? His words struck a chord deep within her, reverberating through her thoughts like a haunting melody. The weight of her guilt pressed down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. She opened her mouth to retort, but the gravity of his arguments held her tongue captive. Just as she prepared to dismiss him outright, another message pinged through the comm. "No need to answer immediately," Charybdis said smoothly, his tone casual, as if they were discussing the weather. "I have to jump soon, anyway. But my offer stands. You and your crew? You're untouchable for now. Take your time. Think about it. I'll be here. The seat is yours when you're ready." As the connection severed, Penn was enveloped in a suffocating silence. The air in her quarters felt thick and heavy, charged with the weight of his offer. She stared at the challenge coin, its surface gleaming ominously under the dim light. For what felt like an eternity, she sat in quiet contemplation, wrestling with the implications of Charybdis's proposal. Eventually, she placed her own coin back in the lockbox, but kept Charybdis's coin in her hand, the cold metal a stark reminder of the path that lay ahead. After a moment's hesitation, she tapped the comm panel, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. "Deeg," she said quietly, her voice trembling with a mix of urgency and fear, "I need to talk." Moments later, Deeg and Gareth entered her quarters, the familiar warmth of their presence a small comfort against the storm raging within her. As they stepped inside, Penn tossed the coin onto the desk with a decisive clatter, her mind made up. "It's him," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "What is?" Deeg asked, confusion flickering in his eyes, his brow furrowed in concern. "All of it. The derelict ship with military supplies. The attack on the Raxian colony. The bombings, the orchestrated chaos." Deeg's eyes widened, realization dawning upon him as he scratched his neck, piecing together the implications. The increase in lost ships, all those survivorless pirate attacks? Penn nodded, her expression grim. It's not just Terran expansion pushing pirate groups into shipping lanes. It's him. He's behind this. Who is he? Gareth's voice was edged with tension, the atmosphere thickening around them. He's the previous captain of Cerberus. Not Alvarez, but the captain he served under before taking over. I don't know his real name, but he goes by Charybdis. Gareth's eyes shot to hers, a mixture of recognition and dread crossing his features. And Scylla, is that a reference to him? Yes. It's as much a connection to him as it is to the myth. Command thought it was clever, as if I were a successor of sorts. Great, Deeg said, running a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling just below the surface. So, what? He tries to kill you to reclaim his power? Sees you as a threat? Then wants to have a chat? Not exactly, Penn replied, her tone sharper now. The attempts on my life were made by his people, but according to him, those orders came from someone else. He claimed it was against his commands. Deeg looked skeptical. What did he want to talk about? An apology, Gareth interjected, sarcasm lacing his words. I would hope. He did apologize, Penn said, her voice steely, but mostly, he wanted me to join him. Stunned silence enveloped the room, the weight of her revelation hanging heavily in the air. Gareth was the first to recover, his expression a mixture of disbelief and concern. Join him? Yeah. He offered me a place equal status, just like him. And? Gareth pressed, his voice sharper now, almost accusatory. What did you say? Penn met his gaze, the tension simmering between them palpable. A fleeting thought crossed her mind, teasing him, making light of the situation, but the gravity of the moment squashed any inclination toward jest. He never let me answer. Okay, but it's a no, right? Gareth pressed, his tone anxious. Penn held his gaze, her heart racing. Absolutely. He's a lunatic. Insane if he thinks I'd join him. I won't be a part of his twisted game. Thank you, Gareth sighed, relief washing over him, the tension in his shoulders visibly relaxing. Deed chuckled softly, his expression a mix of amusement and admiration. Besides, you already have a job, right? Exactly. Penn felt the warmth of camaraderie swell within her, their connection grounding her amidst the chaos swirling in her mind. What are you going to do then? Gareth asked, curiosity mingling with concern. Nothing, I guess, Penn replied, her shoulders slumping slightly as she considered their situation. What's there to do? Next time he reaches out, I'll tell him to shove it. Or something more creative. What about his pirating? Deeg interjected, his brow furrowing as he pondered the ramifications. I suppose the UEMC will want to know, so I'll pass it along. They'll share it with your Federation buddies, I imagine. Otherwise, it's business as usual, Penn replied, determination lacing her words. I hate to say it, but I feel bad for those he's hurting in the meantime, Gareth lamented, his voice heavy with concern. I do too, Gareth, Penn admitted, her heart aching for the innocents caught in Charybdis's web of chaos. But there's not much else we can do right now. He may be dangerous, but the Federation isn't helpless. A ragged band of pirates, no matter how brutal, won't stand a chance against a proper military force. All the strength in the world won't save him from an exploding ship, Deeg suggested, the gravity of the situation settling over them like a dark cloud. In that vein, they'd be wise not to take him alive. Penn met his gaze, her expression resolute. Agreed. If he's anything like you, she trailed off, her meaning clear. Gareth nodded, understanding flashing across his face. I don't mean to compare, but you're both cut from a similar cloth in that regard. He won't go down without a fight. Deeg opened the door, motioning for them to return to the bridge. As they walked, he continued to muse, his voice dipping into thoughtful speculation. I wonder what the political fallout of this will be. If the Federation views this situation unfavorably, it could harm relations between humanity and them. But they might demand that we clean up our own mess. Gareth and Penn shared a knowing glance, the shared humor of their captain's musings lightening the mood momentarily. It was a fleeting comfort in a storm that threatened to engulf them all. As they made their way to the bridge, Deeg snapped back to reality, shaking off the weight of his own thoughts. Then again, I doubt they'd allow Terran military vessels free rein inside our borders. Where are we heading, anyway? The Merchants' Conference, Sir, Tani T replied, his voice steady as he input the next coordinates. Right. And we have quite the journey ahead. The capital is a long way from here, Deeg announced, excitement creeping into his tone. Wait, we're headed to the Federation capital, Penn asked, surprise coloring her voice. Not the true capital, Gareth interjected. It's the capital of one sector, a hub world. There's a trade conference held there by tradition, a gathering of sorts. A good place to snag some juicy contracts, Deeg added, a grin spreading across his face. And we have an invite. It's basically a party where all the big names rub, he faltered, the words slipping from his grasp as he struggled to find the right phrase. Rub elbows? Penn suggested, laughter bubbling up within her at their captain's blunder. Yes! That's it! Deeg exclaimed, a triumphant smile breaking across his face. I have to say, I don't really understand the logic behind that saying. Why rub elbows with someone? As far as I know, that would be considered weird, Gareth pondered, shaking his head. Penn smirked, enjoying the light-hearted banter. I think it's a reference to navigating through a crowd. You get so close that your elbows bump into each other. Ah, well, anyway, Deeg said, shaking off the confusion. Ton? Ready to go, sir, Tani T confirmed, his focus unwavering as he prepared for the jump. Deeg turned to Penn, a mischievous smile dancing in his eyes. Hit it? Penn grinned back, the adrenaline surging through her. Let's do this. With a flick of a switch, the ship jumped out of the system, leaving the chaos of the past behind. The nebula hurtled through the stars, embarking on its long journey toward Federation space. As the familiar hum of the engines enveloped them, Penn allowed herself to breathe a little easier. But deep within her, the specter of Charybdis lingered, a constant reminder that the battle was far from over. With every jump, every new system they entered, the weight of her choices bore down on her. There was no escaping the darkness that loomed ahead, but she was resolved to face it head-on, forging her path with each leap into the unknown.